The moment I saw her marching across the lawn, I knew this day was about to turn into something other than the dream we had planned. The sunlight was still low, spilling gold over the white chairs and the flowers lining the aisle, but her shadow fell long and heavy, slicing through the smiles and the music. She had that determined waddle shoulders back, chin high, lips twisted like she had swallowed vinegar that only meant trouble. Her floral print dress swayed with each step, the kind of fabric that tried to say, "I'm friendly," while the eyes above it screamed, "I'm here to ruin everything." Behind her trailed two other people in matching polo shirts, clipboards in hand, as if they were about to audit the reception. "Excuse me," she barked before even reaching the first row of chairs, her voice cutting through the air like a bad PA system. "This event is in violation of community policy. You cannot proceed without HOA authorization." I didn't even stand from where I was checking on the catering table. Instead, I straightened slowly, letting her words hang there, absurd and brittle in the morning air. "Karen," I said, keeping my tone steady, "you and I both know this isn't HOA property. This is private land. My uncle owns it, and it's not under any HOA jurisdiction." Her face flushed a blotchy pink, but she didn't break stride. "The noise ordinance, the parking congestionary creating hazards. We've had multiple complaints from the neighborhood." The neighborhood she referred to was 3 houses away, and only one of them was occupied by her. My best man, Ethan, was standing near the arbor where the officiant was arranging notes. He started walking toward us, calm and deliberate. I knew he'd heard every word, and I also knew that under that dark suit was his badge and service weapon. Ethan had been with the state troopers for over a decade, and the sight of him stepping into the conversation was like watching a storm cloud move into view for anyone foolish enough to pick a fight. "Ma'am," Ethan said, his voice professional, "are you here as an invited guest?" She blinked, clearly not expecting to be addressed like a suspect. "I'm here as the HOA president, responsible for community order, and I'm telling you this event needs to be shut down immediately." She tried to hand him a paper, something that looked like a violation notice printed from a home computer. Ethan didn't even touch it. "That document has no legal authority on this property. You're trespassing, and you're disrupting a lawful, permitted gathering." Karen's mouth opened, but Ethan's voice dropped an inch lower, firm enough to still the small crowd that had started to form around us. "I'm also a sworn officer with the state police. That means if you keep interfering, I can and will remove you from this venue." The murmurs from our guests started building. Someone whispered, "She's doing this at a wedding?" Someone else, probably my aunt, said, "This is exactly why we didn't invite her." Karen's eyes darted from face to face, but she doubled down. "You can't hide behind a badge to ignore the rules," she snapped. "Everyone has to comply, and I'm authorized to enforce them." That was my breaking point. I stepped forward until I was level with Ethan, my voice carrying enough to reach the back row. "Karen, your HOA doesn't exist here. This land is under county jurisdiction, and I have the permit from the clerk's office right here. You've overstepped every line, and you've done it in front of 40 witnesses." I pulled the permit from my inside pocket and held it up, letting the official seal glint in the sun. Gasps rippled through the guests, some of whom began filming. She hesitated, her eyes flicking to Ethan, then to the cameras. For a second, I thought she might retreat. But then, like a bad actor committing to a worse role, she shoved her fake notice toward me and tried to push past toward the reception tables. That's when Ethan stepped fully into her path, hand resting near his belt, not on his weapon, but close enough to make his point clear. "Ma'am, this is your final warning. You're interfering with a lawful event and attempting to impersonate an enforcement authority. If you take one more step, I will place you under arrest." The twist came right then, not from her, but from the side yard. My cousin Lily, who'd been in charge of parking, appeared with 2 more uniformed officers. Not state troopers, not county deputies. These were from the Attorney General's Special Investigations Unit. Turns out, Lily's fiancé worked there, and when Karen had been spotted earlier measuring the distance from the road to our reception tent, he'd started making calls. The AG's office had already been gathering complaints from around the county about a fake HOA, issuing bogus fines and notices, and guess who matched the description of their prime suspect? Karen froze as they approached, their jackets marked with bold yellow lettering. One of them pulled a folded photo from his pocket, a still from a doorbell camera in another neighborhood, showing her slipping a notice under someone's door. "Mrs. Grant," he said evenly, "we need to speak with you about multiple incidents of unauthorized code enforcement and fraud." Her face drained of color, and for the first time since she stomped onto the property, she didn't have a word to say. The music had stopped entirely by then, but nobody was upset about the interruption anymore. They were riveted. It was as if our wedding had transformed into a live episode of justice, unfolding in real time under the wide blue sky. Karen's hands twitched at her sides, the crumpled fake violation notice now nothing more than a prop in her humiliation. The AG investigators flanked her, their tone calm but firm, asking if she would accompany them to their vehicle for a conversation. She stammered, "This is a misunderstanding," but one officer cut her off. "Ma'am, we have sworn statements, video evidence, and now multiple witnesses to you interfering with a lawful event. You have the right to explain this, but not here in the middle of a private ceremony you weren't invited to." Ethan stepped back slightly, letting them take over, but I saw the satisfied glint in his eyes. This was no longer just about protecting my wedding, it was about shutting down months of her harassment. Karen tried to glance at the guests, maybe hoping for sympathy, but the looks she got were pure ice. Even her two clipboard-carrying companions had backed away, avoiding eye contact as if their HOA badges might turn to dust. One guest muttered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Imagine thinking you could ruin someone's wedding and walk away like nothing happened." The officers guided her toward the driveway, where their unmarked SUV waited. But halfway there, one paused and looked back at me. "Sir, before we go, do you have any evidence on your property of her past activity?" I nodded toward my uncle's farmhouse. "Security cameras. 2 weeks ago she was here, measuring the lawn and taking pictures. I saved the footage." The investigator smiled. "We'll take that with us." That was when the crowd broke into applause. Not for me or Ethan or even the officers, but for the moment itself. For the sudden, cathartic end to months of whispered annoyance and private complaints that had never gone anywhere. Karen was in the back of the SUV within minutes, her wide-brim hat sliding crooked as the door shut behind her. Ethan turned to me, voice low so only I could hear. "That's the thing about people like her. They think authority is something you can fake until it sticks. But real authority comes with accountability." I smiled, feeling the knot in my chest unwind. "And witnesses. Lots and lots of witnesses." The rest of the wedding, it went ahead without a hitch. If anything, the energy was electric. Guests laughed louder, the toasts rang truer, and even the DJ slipped in a few sly song choices that had everyone howling. When my uncle got up to speak, he opened with, "Well, I didn't expect law enforcement to be part of the entertainment, but I think we can all agree it was worth the price of admission." The twist after the twist came a week later. The county paper ran a front-page story. "Fake HOA president arrested at wedding. Countywide fraud ring uncovered." Turns out Karen hadn't been acting alone. Those two clipboard cronies? They'd been helping her invent and distribute hundreds of dollars in fake fines, often pressuring elderly homeowners to settle quietly in cash. The AG's office estimated she'd skimmed over $15,000 in under a year. Neighbors who'd been too afraid to speak up started coming forward. Some had been told they'd lose their homes if they didn't pay. Others had been threatened with code violations that didn't exist. Each story made me angrier, but also more grateful that our wedding had been the trap that finally caught her. Ethan told me later that she'd been charged with multiple counts: fraud, impersonating a public official, harassment, and even trespassing. She was banned from all HOA boards for life, and the restitution order meant she'd be paying back every cent she took. Word was, she'd already put her own house on the market to cover the legal costs. On our porch a month after the wedding, my wife asked if I regretted the scene. I told her no. I told her that a marriage is built on standing together, and that first day as husband and wife, We stood against someone who thought she could bully us out of our own joy. That's a pretty good omen, I said. She laughed, leaned her head on my shoulder, and we watched the sun go down without a single shadow of intrusion. So here's my question for you: when someone like Karen storms into your life swinging fake authority, would you let it pass to keep the peace? Or would you make sure they can never pull that stunt again?